My friend, I have to share something with you. I went skydiving yesterday. Now, currently, it's a Monday afternoon. I'm sitting in the beautiful forest right outside of Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. But about 24 hours ago, I was falling out of a plane in the sky at 13,000 feet in Moab. As part of my kind of early 30th birthday celebration, my wife Eileen and I decided that we were going to go skydiving. I guess it was mainly I decided that I think I wanted to go skydiving, and she decided that she was willing to try it with me. And that led to both of us jumping out of the sky. It was a mind-blowing experience, and there was so much depth to it as far as it wasn't just an experience. It wasn't just a memory. There was so much about overcoming fear and finding out that we are capable of more than we thought we were. And we were reflecting on some of the deeper meaning that we assigned to this whole skydiving endeavor. You might be wondering, why am I telling you about skydiving? Well, because in my conversation today with my guest, Taylor Mae, we talked about this before it actually happened. This conversation was recorded a week or two ago, and we were talking about this idea of how I struggle sometimes with wanting to be perceived or feeling like I need to be perceived as practical and responsible. And I want to go do this thing like spending hundreds of dollars for a 20-minute skydiving experience out in Moab. We were kind of talking through and processing why I wanted to make a decision like this and these parts of my operating system that were telling me, no, don't do this, don't make this decision. So it's kind of fun that you'll now get to hear us talk about that and process that together before it actually happened. Among other things like being a podcast host and a speaker, Taylor is a coach, and she coaches people specifically on this idea of alignment. And we spent the first part of our conversation talking about this idea of alignment. What does it actually mean? How do we know if we're in alignment or not? How do we get into alignment if we're out of it? And how do we notice if maybe we're out of alignment? Taylor's belief is that if we focus on alignment first and achievement second, we're actually likely to go do or achieve more. That alignment is the foundation of us ultimately becoming more successful and doing the kinds of things that we want to do in life. It starts with looking inside and looking at who do you want to be and what do you value in life, and that will lead you down the right paths after that. She has an approach and perspective that I resonate a lot with as I've kind of gone down different paths in my life at different times in focusing on achievement versus focusing on alignment. And so I think you'll gain a lot of value, as I did, from this conversation around what is alignment and how do we pursue it. This was just one of those fun philosophical conversations. I always like talking with people who are in this sort of coaching realm, who are seeing a lot of different people, a lot of different clients at one time, because then you and I get the opportunity to download some of what they're seeing becomes commonalities amongst many people and learn from their perspective and their vantage point. And so you're going to get some of that in this conversation as well. All right, without further ado, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm going to pass the mic off now to my conversation with Taylor Mae.
I always love asking the question with this, like, what does success in this interview look like and feel like to you? Like, what are you hoping, the audience might experience through this conversation?
What a thoughtful question. Success in this show, it happens when two people agree to show up in a very vague and undefined space where I've sent you no questions.
No.
And I have no questions formally prepared. And we show up. We are willing to be vulnerable. We're willing to go deeper into our human experience. And we trust the conversation to lead where it's going to take us. That is success for the show.
Hell yeah. That's my style right there. Sounds
Does that
great.
feel attainable?
It indeed does. I can bring it.
I figured that'd probably be right up your alley. I've said to people, I continue to find like it's sometimes kind of a nerve-wracking experience for me, but I enter into these conversations with I've got I don't know, maybe 11 words written down, and a lot of times I don't look at the phone ever again.
Yeah.
And I just trust that, like, well, I think if we just both show up and we start talking, it's going to lead us somewhere, and that somewhere is probably not somewhere that I might have guessed, maybe not somewhere that you would have guessed. And if I tried to direct it, then sometimes the magic wouldn't happen in the way that it was maybe supposed to. So here we are.
The flow, trusting the flow.
I want to ask you about this word alignment. You know, in a lot of your branding, the things that you are doing in your coaching work and how you're working with people, you use this word alignment and aligned. And I feel like that's one of those words that, you know, we kind of hear it and we're like, yeah, alignment. Like, we want alignment. Sure, that's great. As kind of a foundation of this conversation, and as we bring the listener in, let's work through a kind of basic definition of what does aligned or alignment mean to Taylor? What is this alignment? What does it look like? What does it feel like?
Mm-hmm. I feel like hearing you ask that and knowing that you are such a vulnerable host and leader, like I have like my packaged answer that like I usually can bring to the table with this, but like I like want to sit with like, what does alignment mean to me like today? Like how would and it might change tomorrow or maybe the next day. Alignment to me means being in the truth of who you are, being in the truth of a situation, being in the truth of your pain, being in the truth of your desires. Because I think the truth, if I'm going to just jump into being woo right away, because I can't help it, like functions at the highest frequency. Because if truth is love, which I believe it is, to me, that's at least what I'm after. Like, who cares about like external things that might come from that? But it's like, are you in the truth of who you are? And are you stepping into truthful experiences and truthful relationships? So, you know, vagueness, but I feel like that's what sits with me today, is like this idea of truth with alignment.
Okay, so let's talk about this idea of truth. How do we go about figuring out, you know, if I'm like, well, what is my truth? How do I know what truth is? Where would you lead me to figure out, well, what is the truth?
Now we can get really esoteric if we wanted to.
Let's do it.
I mean, truth to me, I've gone through so many journeys of wrestling with truth, whether that's through religion, whether that's through other people, like trusting other people to tell me what the truth is. Honestly, today, my answer to that is coming back to myself, and specifically coming back to my body. What feels true to my body? And that has been a lot of work for me. And I am someone that loves the body as an entity, as the physical thing it is, and learning how to be connected to our bodies. How do things feel? Truth to me, when I feel like I'm in my truth and in alignment, my body feels expansive. It feels relaxed. It feels excited in the good way, not excited in like the weird nervous system dysregulation way. So yeah, that sounds like really basic, but at this point in time, that's how I at least am gauging my truth. It's so tied to my intuition, literally to my physical body. That's how I make decisions, is like I'm in my career. Like, it's like, do I want to do this? Yes or no? Okay. Let me settle in. What feels true and right in my body? And then leaning that, even if the voices around me are like, you shouldn't do that. Like, that's not what you should be doing. It's like, what does it look like to actually go on the path of trusting that? And when I have gone against that, is when things have gotten messy. And not that things can't get messy no matter what, but have gotten to the, ooh, I made the choice that like wasn't the actual choice. The choice that was for me. So that's what I'd have. What do you have to say to that? Can we make this a two-way conversation? Because I want to hear your thoughts on all of these.
Please. Yeah. This has become, fans of the show are probably going to laugh because sometimes I'm kind of like a broken record, but I love diving into, like, this is a topic that I've been exploring a lot around. Ooh. Well, what is truth? And specifically, what is my truth? I've long operated very cerebrally, very mentally. And so I had said on a recent show, you know, I remember messaging, I don't remember who exactly it was from, but it was like the idea that we don't make emotional decisions, and we want to stay away from getting overly emotional. So we think with our heads, and we make decisions logically. And this is the way that I've kind of operated for a lot of my life. So this whole idea of finding truth and having it be a more physical sense, have it be something that we're feeling within the body. Meanwhile, I'm getting so distracted by my camera, just freaking out. For those of you
you're good. In the flow. This is the flow.
Just glitching. Yeah, okay.
Talking about truth.
Yeah. So, I like how you said that alignment and the feeling of being aligned is a very ongoing thing. And depending on the day, it could be something different. I like that. That feels relatable. What feels like truth to me now, today, I think is different than what I thought I would have defined truth a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I think I'm finding myself going more towards this definition that you're talking about. That is more of a feeling. It's more of a sense. It is tied to the body. So it's something I've been exploring a lot, because
so cool.
Yeah, there's something with this whole intuition thing. I think we know a lot more than we think we do based on what we feel. So that's been a recent journey. Have you always had this definition of alignment, this definition of truth? Like, where did you come to believe this?
I would say internally, yes, but I wouldn't have I have language for it now. And of course I didn't always have language for it. Everything to me is spiritual. And so, I've always, I think I was born a spiritual person. Like, I've always felt really connected to things bigger than myself, to myself. And so I think there was journeys, though, like I kind of pointed to, of that I did look outside of myself for like, oh, this is what truth is supposed to be. This is what the best thing is supposed to be. But I think that's just what growing up is too, and what like trying things on for size looks like. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I think probably in like my early 20s, like really discovering that, like, oh, what if I actually just trusted what I felt and trusted what I saw? Like, and I'm definitely a visual thinker as well. So like, and I ask myself truly on a daily basis, like, what do I want right now? Even if it's like food. Taylor, what do you actually want for dinner? Oh, I want salmon. That feels an alignment for me. Or, so that's so connected to the body. Taylor, what do you like? I don't call myself Taylor, but it's like, what do you want? Like, do you, that'd be weird. Talk to yourself in third person. How do you want to have this conversation today? So literally going into this, like, what do I want out of this conversation today? Or what do I want to give to this conversation today? Okay. Sit with it. Okay, great. I'm going to try that and trust that. And then you do that enough times that you see like, oh, there's something to this. Like, I'm in my best place when I live life like that. And there's like magic that happens. And so it's not like this moment origin point where it's like, oh, this is how I'm going to start to live. But it's just, I think, been an experiment over time. And I will own, like, I think a lot of the time I'm living in that space now. And it feels really cool. And it feels really free and aligned of how I feel like things are going and things feel. So
okay, so going back to your early 20s, where it sounds like there was maybe this time when you started to explore, maybe I could think about things a little bit differently, or I could go about making decisions a little bit differently. Can you identify what started to cause that shift? Was there something that happened or something that made you start to say, I'm going to try something else?
Mm-hmm. The memory that's coming to me specifically was, with some context, I grew up as a dancer, and that was a huge part of my life and my identity. Like, I was truly like, I am the dancer girl. I was on a trajectory when I was in high school to move to New York City to live that life. Like, that was what I was supposed to do. And I remember having a vision in my mind I was telling someone else about this earlier today, funny enough, of Taylor, when you get to New York City, I saw myself walking in the streets of New York with my ballet shoes in my hand and then looking up into like the skyscrapers and being like, oh, you're going to want to be in there. Like you're going to you're going to want to be where business is taking place. You're not going to actually want to go to the dance studio. And I was like 18 at the time. And so I didn't have context for what that actually meant and what business even really was. So it's crazy to look back at that moment. And I'm so grateful I trusted that for many reasons. But to see how lit up my life feels like by pursuing business, and pursuing that trajectory I saw for myself just from that moment of what do I want? And then go, like, I would say that was probably a catalytic moment for me because I saw that it worked. And so that the essence of that is how other moments feel when I'm making those types of decisions. So yeah, I would say it started probably there.
It's interesting because it seems like you play in this balance between, we've talked about things, as you said, I'm going to go woo immediately. It's funny that we feel like we have to label things that way.
I know,
but at the same time, it seems like you play in this balance of, I think you'd written it somewhere on your website, spiritual and strategic. And those things to me, I think on the surface, they feel like they're different. They feel like they're opposite. How do you find this balance between the spiritual aspect of things and the strategic, business aspect of things? Walk us through how you find the in-between there.
Yeah, exactly to your point. I don't think they're opposite ends of the spectrum. I think they are things that are meant to be integrated. And so I definitely, it's funny, like I already labeled myself as spiritual, but I'm also a very practical person. And so to me, it's like, what's the point of being spiritual? So a logical, practical question. If it is not affecting my life and then affecting like the collective as a whole, like if I'm just being spiritual to be spiritual, is that it? Like period, done. But if it's actually impacting my life and then the people I get to directly touch and then the things that I get to create through the essence of spirituality impacts the world, impacts a community in some way, that to me, I'm like, oh, I can get behind that, all day long. And so, no, I don't think they're opposite ends of the spectrum. And it's just, I think the lens in which I think spirituality is the lens in which I see things through, and the application is strategic. Like, aligned to achieve to me, really, it's like spiritual, internal first, and then we take that and then we turn it into something that is tangible, on the surface, turning invisible things into tangible realities. And I think that's what humans are created for. I think it's Michael Beckwith that talks about that, like that. No, it's Deepak. It's Deepak Chopra. He literally is like, just like a flower is made to bloom, like that is the purpose of a flower. It's planted, it grows. That's what a human's purpose is literally to take invisible things and turn them to visible reality. And that, at least to me, is a spiritual process that obviously has practicality in its nature too. So this is like what I think about on a moment by moment basis. It's like, is living in this space. So it truly is my favorite thing to think about and talk about.
How do you know when you're leading with or living with spirituality? I know what's probably happening right now. You just heard the ad music play. You're starting to tune out exactly what I'm saying, so you can skip this ad and get back to the conversation, and I'm going to encourage you not to. Because if you continue to skip this ad in order to get back to the conversation, then at some point there may not be a conversation for you to get back to. Okay, now that I have your attention, that might have been a little bit exaggerated. Likely, I'm not going to stop producing this show, but you can help me make this show a lot more viable, and so I can continue doing this into the future. Fun fact, I don't make any money from this show. In fact, I actually pay in order to create these episodes on a weekly basis. And while that may not exactly seem like your problem or your issue, if you like meaningful conversations like the ones that we have here, well, then it is your problem. I could use your help in the form of financial support specifically in order to keep this show going and continually invest back into creating it. Here's another fun fact. If everyone listening to this episode were to donate the single cost of a cup of coffee, I could probably do this as a full-time job. That is a dream and a vision I have for myself one day, and I want this to be like PBS or NPR, where it's funded by the viewers. I'm imagining a show where we, together, collectively, decide that these meaningful conversations are important to us, and we don't rely on outside help or advertisers in order to keep them coming on a weekly basis. So yes, this is a long-winded way of saying I'm asking you for money. If you're in a place where you feel comfortable doing so, I am asking you to make a small donation to support the show. You can do that by following the link that is in the show notes of this episode to a place called Buy Me a Coffee. Now, by buying me a coffee through this platform, you're not actually buying me a coffee. It's just kind of a mental construct to make this transaction of money a little bit more tangible. Thank you in advance for considering supporting me, supporting the show, and for supporting meaningful conversations like the one we're about to get back to right now.
Good question. I have to think about that one. Because it feels like I'm so in it, like in my, like it's like I have to dig myself out.
Let's dissect. Let's dissect. Let's see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. How do I know when I'm living? I think of Rob Bell's title to his book that everything is spiritual. And I think there's like a spiritual industry, right? These coaches and these mentors, and you go to these circles and yoga, which I love, but it's also a culture in of itself, right? But I think being spirituality to me also is like me typing an email and doing it in an essence of being of service and compassion and kindness. It looks like being thankful for eating the piece of pizza that I'm going to eat for dinner tonight. I can't wait to lay on the couch and watch TV and eat pizza with my boyfriend. Like that is spiritual to me because I made it spiritual. And so I see everything as that, and having a lens of, right, again, we have to stop prefacing being woo-woo. Seeing everything as energy, right? It's like, oh, this is all just, we're all just on a floating rock, and this isn't even like our bodies aren't even real. Like, like I can get really esoteric with it, but it's like, like it's all spiritual, so yeah. So it's hard for me to gauge like, this is spiritual, this is not, because at the end of the day, I think everything is.
I love that answer. I want to pause for a second just because as you were talking there, I started to get some feedback, and I'm wondering if it's coming from my end because I'm having all kinds of wacky things.
Yeah, do you edit these?
I try to stay light on the editing, but for cases where if there's just like weird technology lulls, that would be a place where I will do some editing.
Cool, so we can edit this. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's coming from my end, but I don't want there to be. Okay, let me think here. If I stop the recording, so I can't change anything mid-recording. If I stop the recording, it's going to start the upload, which is fine. And then I think once we start recording again, it will stop automatically uploading. So let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the recording.
Cool.
Okay, so we're going to use we had to use the magic of editing to catch back up in the conversation. It's always a bummer to me too when, what an answer. We're talking about spirituality. I think you thought about that for maybe like the first time in your life and articulated it. And then we're like, and we're going to cut now to technical difficulty.
How it goes. All good. I'm good. So don't worry about me.
I loved as you thought about spirituality and the ways in which, I thought of just being aware and being present as you were talking about. That seemed to be a common thread as you're just talking about the things that you're looking forward to, the things that you're doing. Do you feel like those could be two of the ingredients? Maybe there's more, but are those two of the ingredients that kind of go into this spirituality, a cake that we're baking?
Yeah, I think for me, at least, my version of spirituality, at least, I actually had this thought the other day while I was driving. I'm like, wow, I am definitely like, if there's like a past thinker, a present thinker, and a forward thinker, I am definitely in that like present, forward, or future area, and maybe for many reasons. And so, yeah, to me, that's how my version of spirituality is definitely packaged up, is like being really grateful in the moment and holding a really expansive vision for the future that I've also come to be, probably in this last year, detached to. but care about so deeply at the same time. And it's been a weird ego crushing journey to get there. But I will like say I'm in like the best like mental emotional spot that I've probably ever been in because of that shift of being present, being grounded, being excited for the future, but also not caring.
Okay, tell us more about the shift. So you're detaching some of the, grip or hold that you want to have on the future and the future things coming true. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I feel like I bust my ass working every day for like my future vision and what I want to create and continue to create. But doing it from a place, it's like a motivation or a relationship to it of like, I'll be okay no matter what. Like, even if this doesn't unfold as I want it to, it's finding safe. It's a safety thing for me. Like every like kind of spiritual healer person I worked with, they're like, yeah, like safety and finding safety within myself instead of outward things. It's probably a journey a lot of us go through, but it has been a big one for me. And so I think for my future, that's like the shift that has happened is home is in me, not in things outside of me. And
that's been a difficult shift to make.
Yeah, because it's scary.
What's scary about it?
I think it just comes down to like, can I, it's funny bringing it back to trust since that's how we started this conversation, but can I trust myself? Can I be okay in myself? Can I create love and joy and fulfillment within myself? And like, that's it, And so I think it's the ultimate challenge. And I don't know if it's possible to be 100% there. Maybe it is. I'd be curious to know. But yeah, that's especially in a culture that is so not that is so wired to make all the money you can so you can feel safe, or like look this amazing so other people like you and then you can feel safe, or whatever the version is of it. That's like literally what we're told since the second I think we're put on the planet, at least in the US. And it's like, wait, what if I don't follow that culture and narrative of things? And so it's definitely a little contrarian, I think, which also feels scary because then I feel like being contrarian also leads to feel like potentially isolating and lonely, which I think is also a fearful thing of like, what if no one else gets it? Then I'm going to have to be alone, which then turns back to like, am I okay with being by myself? Like in myself, So I think it's all a loop and a cycle.
Have you found it lonely, thinking differently, maybe going down a different path, approaching life differently? Have you found it lonely, or what's been your experience of trying to find or create a sense of community of maybe some similar minded people?
Yeah, that's funny you ask that. And I haven't thought about this in a long time. Today, no, I don't feel lonely. Sometimes I do. I'll take that back. I won't be so just clear in that. There are moments when I'm in rooms with people or in conversation with people where, yeah, I do. But for the majority of my life, I feel like I have my soul people that I feel connected and seen by. But I remember my mom and I would always have a conversation when I was growing up, like honestly, like probably late elementary school through high school. And I would always say, I feel like I'm on an island, like I'm on an island and no one sees things the way I do. Like that's a phrase I would say all the time. And I don't even think it was coming from, like, it wasn't from a victim place of like, poor me and no one understands me. Like I really truthfully don't think it was coming from that place. It was truly like, I don't feel like understood maybe, or I don't feel seen, or I don't feel like I'm connecting with people in the way that like, I feel like I actually want to. And so, yeah, I definitely have felt that along the way in my journey. And maybe it's like a self-awareness thing or a consciousness. I don't know what that is. And I always I remember, it's funny, I haven't thought about this. Like, I would always say, I feel like I'm on an island. I don't think this is like a superior place. I just feel like it's a different place. And so, yeah, so I have experienced that, but I don't feel that often because I think I have found the other people on the same island, or I jumped to a different island, whatever with this analogy. And I think there are moments. I had one in particular this week where I was like, oh, these are my people, like, okay, and it's like, again, but I knew that alignment, going back again to the beginning, I felt it in my body. I felt it in the relief. I felt it in the like pure giddy joy of like, oh, okay, these are my people. And like, we don't think we have to be with our people all the time either. Like, I don't think that's what life is about either. I think it's important to be challenged by people that think differently and aren't our vibe all the time. But yeah, so I have felt lonely in the journey. I don't right now, only sometimes. And, I'm curious how it will continue to unfold, because I think in different ways as well, like there can be elements that like, oh, this person understands me in this way, but they don't understand me in this way. And I think that just brings into even question just relationships in general. Like, and with my partner, it's like, oh, you see me in this way, but you might not in this way. And that's okay. Or in a friend, it might be vice, versa. And like being okay. That's why I think relationships are so important to feeling fulfilled. Cause it's like we get to serve and connect with each other, in all those different ways. So I think when we're intentional about that, that helps us be less lonely along the way too.
I can really resonate with, I think we can all, whether we're paying attention to it enough might be the question or not. We can all, I think we've all experienced, I know I have, when you're with certain people, you're saying like, these are my people, you just get that energy and that sense of like, wow, whenever I spend time with blank, I find myself just feeling elevated. I'm kind of, I'm more energized. I'm operating at a higher level, higher frequency, whatever you want to say. If you're listening to this conversation and you're like, well, how do I know, who my people are? I would encourage you to just pay attention to when you spend time with people. How do you feel during and how do you feel afterward? And do you think we all kind of have this sense of like our bodies do know, our bodies do feel it? Do you think we all have that to some extent?
Oh, 100%. I think you put it so perfectly. It's like, is this like giving me energy or is this draining my energy? And I think that's honestly the most concise way to put alignment in general too, as you put it. So, 100%. Yes. Okay.
You've intentionally structured and said align to achieve. How often do we just want to skip right to the achieve part? Why is the alignment part? Why does that come first? Why is that important? And how does that play in the relationship of then the achieve part down the line?
Yeah, because I think there are a lot of people that have chased unconventional achievement and success and are not, I don't love the word fulfilled. I just can't think of a better one. They don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel like authentically expressed. Maybe that's it. It's like, I think when we're in our authentic expression is when we can be like, oh, okay, here I am. And I think we all have our own versions of that. And so it's almost like that phrase to me is also like kind of there's an advocacy to it in a sense of achievement doesn't have to look like what you were taught achievement has to look like. Achievement is what is in alignment for your achievement to look like. And so it's uniquely you, it's your own version of it. And so that's why it has to go in order, because if you don't have that data about yourself, then you can't inform like what you want. Like you don't, like, I love the phrase, like, you won't know what to do if you don't know who you are. And I think it is the first step, even in business. And I've had the chance now to work or see people that are like really quote unquote successful in business, and the ones that are leading from their authentic place, in their aligned place, are thriving and are creating energy to what they want, and also have that, cultural version of success. And it's so interesting for me to to see that. And so yeah, I think for me, it's obviously not a linear journey, but it's definitely a prerequisite to the practical nature of achievement?
So achievement is I mean, maybe not interchangeable. They're different words, but it's kind of the idea of of success as well, and figuring out what is your definition of success? What are the achievements, or what is the achievement that is going to be meaningful or fulfilling to you, not based on what other people think or what society has said achievement or success wants to look like. We've got to go figure out what does achievement and success look like for Chad? And then let's operate from that place.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what I thought of when you were just saying that too? This might be a little like a challenge thing. You tell me. But I think oftentimes when I hear people say like, create your own version of success, a version of this conversation, they actually like shrink their visions of what they think is possible, because they're like, okay, if I don't have to like be, rich and famous, then I don't have to like put as much pressure on myself. So I don't have to really achieve anything. But I have a curiosity that maybe for some people, if they got really honest with themselves, their true aligned achievement is actually ginormous, because their capacity and their vision and their ability is bigger than maybe anyone has ever seen in them before. And so it's just funny. Like, I feel like sometimes this conversation is used as a cop-out, and I don't mean like rich and big, but it's like, are you living to your fullest potential though? Or are you saying that I'm going to create my own version of success, but copying yourself out of your own potential? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had this conversation with my friend Nate at one point, and we were talking about, some people might say like, well, success for me is getting out of bed every day. And now, not that can't be success.
Yeah.
For certain people, that may be what success looks like. We don't know what people are going through and what they have to overcome for that to just be, a stepping stone in the right direction every single day. Then I think like there's certain people you can never prescribe, but it's just like, is that really the ultimate version of success though? Like, is that, if you were to envision your most wild and beautiful life, like, would that be the marker that would say, you know what, I've done it. I've succeeded. So it is interesting. I think as I reflect on my own life and my own experiences, yeah, I think I tend to do that. We define what we want to do, achieve, what success is. And I don't know why it feels safe. Maybe it feels more comfortable to define something that feels reachable. It feels attainable. Mm-hmm. So that maybe we're not opening ourselves up for exposure or for people to criticize us or for us to feel like failures or whatever it may be. Yeah, I think we tend to skew on the thinking smaller side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we go that route rather than envisioning the most wild success and wild achievement that we could?
Because it's vulnerable to fail and vulnerable to desire things out loud, or, tell people what we actually want, because it requires us to have to feel seen. And then it's, I think, our culture's weird relationship with failure, and like, oh, if I fail at something, that means I'm a failure, which is furthest from the truth. I was just watching Mark Cuban's masterclass, and he was like, I have failed at so many things. He's like, so many things. And he's like, but I just keep showing up and doing it. And it's like, cool. Like what would life look like if we actually were okay with that? And that's something because at least for me and my journey, perfectionism is absolutely what gets in my way. So I'm preaching to myself as I'm talking about this. Like, that is what gets in my own way. But it's like, what if you did something and you literally fell on your face? One, would you be okay with yourself? Okay, maybe. I should be. I know I should, and I can't be. I'd work through that. Two, would you just be okay to keep going and keep showing up? And I think that's a decision that everyone has to begin to make for themselves, especially on the people on the journey of wanting to create, a wild success. Again, whatever that means to you, your wild, successful life is a requirement. I think those questions are to ask yourself and to honestly wrestle with.
It really stood out to me that you said it's vulnerable to desire. And I think that's really stood out to me. That feels true to me. I think sometimes it feels difficult to just state and say, I want this. I want to achieve this. I want this in my personal life, in my professional life, whatever it may be, to say, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve. This is who I want to become. That feels difficult to do, just to start with a very basic act of just desiring and wanting something and expressing that. Because I guess it comes, then there's just like a fear of, well, what are other people going to think about that? I think it tends for me to be very an external thing. What are other people going to think by me desiring this thing and outwardly doing that? And so then I do this little loop where it's like, well, let me just talk myself out of that. Let's dial it back to a socially acceptable thing. And then this is what I'll say I desire.
So it's like, we self-sabotage like that all the time. And what does that feel like to, like, what would you say for you, like the fear and the vulnerability is? Like, if you're expressing your desires, like, what do you not want to be found out about? If that makes sense.
What a question. It's something about, I'm not sure that people are just going to view me differently. I have this, I've worked through this relationship with being viewed as a very, like, responsible person and someone who makes, I'm putting up air quotes, good choices and responsible choices. And so, it's something about the perception, and that people are going to perceive me as and be like, oh, he's not this responsible person that we thought he was, or he's not this practical person that we thought he was. I think that's what limits me or holds me back at times. I laugh. I just recorded another conversation recently, and I laugh because I'm like, I'm saying this sitting in a van that I live in and have for the last 2 years. So it's like, obviously there's times where it's not holding me back that much because I probably wouldn't have made some of these choices. But I do think that's kind of what's behind it is I've attached a lot of my identity to being this practical, logical, responsible person. And if I start going the other way, I don't know, there's some kind of worry that people are going to be like, oh, I don't know if he's really the person that we thought he was. And am I okay with that?
Yeah. Oh, I resonate deeply with the responsibility one. Are you an oldest sibling?
I'm not. I'm a middle child. I'm a middle child.
Okay. Sometimes I notice I'm an oldest sibling. It's like the older sibling syndrome of like, I am responsible. Maybe you embody that in your own way, it sounds like. But no, I definitely resonate with that. And so it's like, what if we got to ask ourselves, like, what if I am irresponsible? What if I'm irresponsible sometimes? Which we are.
Yeah.
And it's like a shadow thing. Yeah. What if people thought that? Okay. Are we going to die? No. I mean, yes, eventually. But like today, hopefully not. By people finding that out, cool. Great. And if they think I'm irresponsible, great. I'm going to continue on now, so, it's hard though. And so it's like taking this concept, but filling in the blank of whatever that activation, word or theme is, I think. And that's where like the honesty and the self-awareness piece comes into play of like, what is the loops standing in my way of, whether it is like you're saying external and what people are thinking of me or, what I think about myself. And so, yeah, it's a whole thing. I feel you on that one though.
So this will be a fun little, because this episode will likely come out after this happens. Just as of today at lunch, it was a day or two ago. Eileen and I were talking about, what were we talking about? She had a journal prompt that was like, what are 3 ways you'd like to add more fun into your life?
Ooh.
One of her answers was around bringing more adventure. Oh, wait. That was one of the questions, but this one, okay. This wasn't the question that led to this answer. The question was
okay.
Something of what's been on your to-do list for a long time.
Ooh.
So she started listing some of her things. And I started listing some of mine. Mine were very like adventure oriented. Anyway, one of those things was we talked about, I think I made mention of skydiving. Okay, fast forward to today. We're at the coffee shop, and I think she had made a post on Instagram that was like, what should we do when we're in Moab? And this brand who we're friends with, Nakey Butter, they were like, well, when we were in Moab, we went skydiving and, opened up a pack of Nakey Butter on our way down. And that's what we did when we were in Moab. And we were just like, is this a sign that we need to do this? So anyway, we're talking about going skydiving next Friday, a week from today. I've always wanted to do it. I'm turning 30 this year. And it's like, well, I think maybe we need to just do this. I bring this up, and this will, again, be a fun little, because I think this will come out after, hopefully the experience has happened.
Yes.
It plays for me. There's like that, to do it, it would be like $600 or $700. And I don't know a whole lot about skydiving, but I'm imagining the entire experience is probably like 15 minutes. Like you hop on the plane, you go up, it says it's a 55-second descent that you free fall. And then, the experience is just like over. There's a lot of parts of wiring in my brain, but the practical, logical side of me is like, that's an irresponsible use of money. That's not a good, like, what are you gaining from that? That's not an investment of your money. You're not getting something back. You're not investing into your business, whatever it may be. So that's like a very real time thing where I kind of wrestle and struggle with, is that responsible or practical, or what are people going to think? Even though everything in my body is like, yeah, I definitely want to do this. Yeah.
And like exactly you said, into your body is like, yeah, I want to do that. So it's like following the energy. And so what if that following the energy and what creates energy, someone might think is irresponsible? And it's like, you have to choose, which path are you going down? Like, are you going down the responsible path or the create your own energy path? And I think you can live a life where both coexist. Like, I think you can have an income creating job and pay your bills and like show up to your family doing responsible things while also going skydiving and splurging on an experience that you and your wife have always wanted to do, And so it's just, that's how I see it and what you're saying. And obviously blowing this up, to a larger, example as well. But I think that's such that is like literally a epitome example of this. I love that. And I can't wait for you guys to go skydiving.
It's the example that a and can exist. We can, yes, there is an element of, we probably have to be responsible to some extent. We've got bills we have to pay, potentially ourselves to take care of, maybe other people to take care of. And that doesn't mean that we can't make what would be perceived as irresponsible decisions along the way. Both can coexist. I have to remind myself of that a lot, that it can be an and equation. Yeah.
No, I totally feel that and understand that. It's like I say like the good girl syndrome, good boy, good girl syndrome thing too, that like where along the way in our childhood or whatever, where we like so celebrated for being this like good, responsible kid. Like I was rewarded for that left and right. And so it's like, oh, can I be okay in myself if like I'm not rewarded in that way like I was when I was 10, And so that's like a thing I see in myself at least.
I'm curious when I talk to people like you who are in this coaching type of world and who are working with different people. I'm curious to get some of your learnings of like, okay, what are some of the themes that you find your clients and people are working through? What are some of those recurring themes that maybe you're noticing as the coach who gets to oversee and work with a variety of people that maybe you can help some of us, distill and say, here's some of the things that I'm seeing are very common in the human experience, or maybe it will at least just help us feel less alone because we might be going through something similar. Are there some themes that you're noticing?
And also just so timely and funny you say that, because I was also thinking about this today. This might sound bad, talking to someone, and I wasn't coaching them. I was in a conversation with them, but I couldn't help but observe like kind of the following of what I'm going to say is what I feel like I see so often, and again, probably because I see it in myself easily, is really it comes down to this self-worth stuff. And kind of as I was experiencing this person talking about the things they wanted to do or have always been wanted to do or been trying to do, honestly, my internal reflection was, you're never going to be able to do it if you like literally don't start owning that you can do it. Like, ouch, sorry. but you can only do so many practical actions and behaviors. You have to own who you are and own what you bring to the table, and then people respond to that. I see it over and over and over again. How are you showing up into your life, into a room, into a relationship? People treat you like the way you invite them to treat you. And that maybe that sounds manipulative in some way, but like, right, we don't have to be weird about it and be like that. But like, how do you want people to treat you? Do you want people to pay you to do this certain thing in this certain way? Then show up to your life in that way, and people will start perceiving you in that way. They'll start paying you in that way. Like, we're all kind of silly, like, as humans, and way simpler than we think. And so I just want to shake myself and shake other people sometimes of like, just believe in your goddamn self, like, just do it. Like, what if you did? Like, work through all your shit you need to do and own it and walk into the room and go after the things you want. Cause like, it sounds like, cheesy, but no one hands it to you. And that doesn't mean that you have to strive all the time, but it does mean that you have to position yourself and posture yourself in a really intentional way. And so obviously I get fired up about this because it drives me, because I think I see so many incredibly talented people that desire big and beautiful things for their life that won't be able to do it simply because they don't believe in themselves. And that is super sad and disappointing. And we have to get over ourselves. So like, when it comes down, like, get over yourself. You're good. You are good enough. You deserve the things that you want. Now proceed, And so that feels like, well, most of my coaching conversations, maybe not that direct, like, I'm coaching, I'm not necessarily telling, but can be the energy, I'd say, of a lot of my conversations, because we all need a kick in the ass, I think, a lot of the time. Yes, there's healing. Yes, there's all the feels and being in our hearts, which I love, but there's also, again, the truth, which that's, I think, the truth for all of us.
What is, the role of the coach? If coaching isn't telling, what is coaching?
Coaching is supposed to be guiding people into the truths about themselves. It's about holding space and asking the right questions to help people make the discoveries that they want to make about themselves. Because I love encouraging people, and I do that. So I guess I tell people in that, but I can't believe in themselves for themselves. Like, it is their walk and their journey, just like I'm on my own walk and my own journey. And so, I wish I could. Like, sometimes I'm like, let me just jump in your skin and believe in yourself for you, but that's just not how this thing works. And so, it's really just being a guide at the end of the day that I hope, and it is the most rewarding thing ever when I see people come to some of those, conclusions in the essence I just, described, and start the transformation that happens externally in people's lives. And that transformation internally happens is indescribable. I can't put words to it. And so yeah, that's what coaching to me and the coaching experiences I hope to give people feel like. But the client has to show up. They have to be open. They have to be willing to go there. I can ask as many great questions as I want, but as a client, it's your responsibility to engage and be open at the end of the day. So, which is a hard one. I used to be like codependent and like wish I could really actually believe I could, and then I was like, oh wait, I can't. So that was a hard but helpful realization to have.
Is that something you continue to struggle with? That feeling of seeing someone's potential or wanting them to show up for themselves in a certain way, and recognizing that you play a role, but you can't control what they do. You can't make them do anything. Is that so difficult at times?
I don't see myself like jumping in as much. Like, I have the awareness to like see it myself get riled up in that way. But I still like that, like, holy frustration definitely still exists, but I don't think as much anymore. I'm like, my behaviors are following that, I would say, because I'm aware of it. But no, the frustration is still there. I feel like I felt it like 3 times today.
Yeah. I mean, in some of the work that I do, I do marketing work and I do marketing consulting. And it's like, there's always an element of coaching that's on the table. I tend to work with individual business owners, and just knowing from my own experience, it's not just here's the plan, go just execute X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of things that are happening in our heads that are stopping us from going and doing X, Y, Z. Knowing what we need to do and then doing it are typically two very different things, which is why, and I also resonate with, I do coaching work with my friend Nate, who's been on the show. And I resonate a lot with it's not encouragement that I need. I got to go into myself and I've got to figure out what is getting in the way of me saying, I want to do this thing and I'm not doing it. Why? What do I need to go into and discover and shed light on so that I can get there and understand that thing and carry it with me? Not just, someone saying, come on, rah, rah, you got it.
Yeah.
You can do it.
I think everything we want is just a to-do list. And we just have to create the to-do lists that we want. And to-do lists to me close the gap between where you are and where you want to be, right? Because it's when you check things off the list, you're like, oh, I accomplished the things I set out to do. So it's evaluating what's on your to-do list, kind of you're talking about the adventure piece. I love that. But it's doing it in exactly also the way that you're saying of what am I wanting for myself? And am I the things that I'm wanting for myself, are they on the to-do list or are they not? And taking an audit of that. And so yeah, I mean, it comes down to being honest with yourself and looking inside and looking at what you're working toward and making many adjustments along the way.
Okay, we've talked about a couple of the maybe at times frustrating parts of the coaching role that you play. Let's talk about what are some of the most rewarding parts of being the coach.
I think the transformation piece, as I mentioned, that it's a shift. It is a shift to see someone go from that imposter syndrome-y place, not believing in myself place, as a default, to my default is going to be I believe in myself 90% of the time, and then I feel off when I don't believe in myself, and I'm going to do work toward it. It's literally a different paradigm to live in, and so to see someone make that shift. Amazing. So that's the first one. The second one would be, so that's the alignment part. Then the achievement part is seeing that external quote unquote success play out in whatever someone's trying to go through. I have people that are in job transitions and it looks like, my gosh, I got to have a conversation with the CEO of this company and I felt like I was in my power. I communicated what I wanted and it worked. So it's not even the first part. First part, yes, win, gold star, but it worked and I got the job is oh my gosh, that's just the cool cherry on top. And to see people's physical lives shift, again, I can't put words to it. And then on even the financial side of it, I have these clients that are making incredible amounts of money and they've only been in business for almost a year to the date by showing up as themselves. And that's what they, obviously there's many pieces in place that support that, but they attribute so much of that success in an industry that typically it's hard to find a lot of success in, but because they've embodied who they are and they have led with that, they're finding an actual real life-changing financial reward. That's so freaking cool to see. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking. Real life. So yeah, so I would say those are the pieces that I literally could stay up just thinking about. It's so cool.
Okay, as we wrap up our conversation, I would be remiss if I don't throw on my fellow entrepreneur hat for a second here. And I'm curious about how you go about explaining is not the right word, but showing the value of the work that you do and this idea of alignment. Do you ever run into, do people, it's kind of do people categorize that as sort of a woo-woo thing, as we've said, and well, why do I need to become aligned? I just want to go achieve. how do you go about communicating the value of the alignment piece? And is that something has that been a process for you as an entrepreneur?
It actually has been a process, because I think the process has been me actually believing that hypothesis first and foremost, because I think it's been like, when I was younger, it's like, am I just like making this up? Like everyone, like around me, it's like, or I read on Instagram, it's like, do these 5 things and then you're going to be successful. And I'm like, is that actually what it is? But then I really came to learn through experience with myself and experience with clients, like, no, like they're actually like not telling the truth, but like the experiences I'm having are the truth of what I see to be, happening. And I would say I'm in a place now where it's not even like if someone doesn't even feel open to going there, it's just not a fit, because I can't, that's just not what I want to do. I don't want like to convince you of that. I want to start working with someone that's open to have those conversations and to go there from the get-go, or frankly, as I pointed out, this process, it's like a waste of time, because it's like nothing is about me and where I want to see it go, but it's just, it's not what I want to see happen for a client and what I want my work with them to look like. And so, so now, as an entrepreneur now with my coaching business, it's just so organic, frankly. Like it just is really, I'm more in that show more than tell. I do a lot of free coaching sessions with people that come my way. It's like kind of like the Costco free sample idea. It's like, before you buy, I don't need to convince you to buy. Try my sample. Like try to have this experience. And if you leave wanting more, you want more of this experience, not of me, of this experience for yourself in your life, then yeah, I'm right here, and would love to help you with that. And if not, I'm so glad, hopefully you got something out of your sample, you got of something. So that's how I go about things most of the time these days.
Costco's doing something right.
They're doing lots of things
we gotta
right,
learn.
Actually.
Okay, but as we bring this to a close, I have a last, maybe very unfair question for you, but we're going to boil it down really simple for people. We're going back to the topic of alignment. If someone is listening to this and they're like, I kind of hear what you're saying, but I feel completely out of alignment, or I don't know what alignment is, what that means for me. I don't know what that looks like. Is there a question or a next step that you would ask that person maybe to think about or reflect on to start maybe making some progress towards what this aligned thing that we've talked about is?
The first thing that comes to mind, kind of tying in, I feel like a theme throughout this conversation, is just getting in the habit of asking yourself what you want, from the small things. Like I used the example before. What do I actually want for dinner? And from a place of, am I like my true self want? Like not like, oh, I want this because like I feel, dysregulated, so I want to eat this unhealthy food. Sometimes you do actually want to eat. I really want a pizza. I'm going to eat my pizza. But what do you actually want? And I think maybe that could look like in the moment, learning to practice that. I think it could look like a practice, like at the end of the day, what did I really want today? Like play through the day, back through the day. Where are the moments that I actually went after I want? And where are the moments that I didn't? And where was the resistance along the way? Where are the things that I knew I wanted to do something, but then I didn't do it? What's that about? And just inquiring and asking questions. And until, we ask enough questions and then we get to make a shift into being another version of ourselves. So I would say some version of that is like what comes to mind as a practical practice for people.
All right, there we go. To my friend, to you listening in your car or on your walk or wherever, you and I have some homework to do. We got to start doing a little thinking and reflecting on what do we want. I think that's a great starting point. I appreciate you joining me in the space. I appreciate you sharing some of your wisdom. I always appreciate opportunities to just riff about this life thing that we're doing and try to make a little bit more sense of it. So I value this time. I'm glad that we got to connect. If people wanted to connect with you, where can they find you and what are the best ways for them to do that?
I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn. I have a podcast myself called the Align to Achieve Show. Yeah, I mean, if you find one of those, then you'll find the other ones too. So would love to connect with anyone and have a conversation. But thank you, Chad. I feel like we could talk for like 4 more hours. So I look forward to when we get to be in person one day, you, me, and Eileen, and I'll bring Nate along and we'll have a good time. So excited for that.
That'd be great. I would love that. I'll put some links to all the things that Taylor mentioned in the show notes of this episode. Taylor, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
It's funny now sitting after this whole skydiving experience and reflecting back on this conversation that I had with Taylor and working through and talking about this need for responsibility or to be perceived a certain way and how we can work through some of those things. I guess I feel proud now to say that, well, I worked through some of those things. I feel proud that I made the decision to go skydiving with Eileen and we did it. And it was an unbelievable experience. And for me, personally, in the things that I value and how I want to live my life and how I want to be in alignment and what that feels like for me, this felt like a very aligned decision. It felt in alignment with those things that I value and those things that I want to have in my life, those experiences that I want to have. So I've been thinking more about this idea of alignment, and it's my question to you this week, which is, what can you bring into your life that would feel more in alignment? Without actively thinking about these things, well, then we don't come up with answers. And if we don't come up with answers, how can we ever prioritize these things in our life if we don't know about them? So this act of thinking about it, defining it, will allow you, I think, to be able to call it into your life and be more intentional about creating it. And I'd love to see that for you. I think that'd be awesome. I can't wait to see what some of these meaningful things that you want to bring into your life that would feel aligned for you. For me, it was skydiving. What is it for you? I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message. You can also send an email to aleveldeeperpod@gmail.com. We have a new email. I would love to hear some of your personal experience or stories. And that's going to be it for today. So I'll see you next week.